So, welcome everybody. This is TechShare Pro 2020, and I'm Mark Walker from AbilityNet. We've got an amazing program for you today. I hope you've worked out how to navigate your way around that. I will check in on some of the navigation details for you in a minute. But the first half hour is really just a chance to get started, get a bit of a chat going. I've got some guests here who are joining me to have a chat about what we're doing today. And hopefully what we'll do is just warm up and point you to where we think that the highlights are. But you'll have seen there's a packed program, and we've got some amazing guests and some incredible sessions. So all we're really going to do is chew the fat a bit and get the ball rolling. I've got my coffee and my croissants here still, so I'm still just getting myself warmed up. So first of all, let me introduce my guests. I've got Adi Latif from AbilityNet. Hi, Adi.
Good morning. Hi, Mark.
How you doing?
Everyone.
You're in London, aren't you?
I am in London, yeah. I mean, I could be anywhere really, couldn't I? But unfortunately, I'm still in London at the moment. Yes.
Oh, I tell you what, you're not being played out live. I haven't plugged you in. Sorry, it's what I'm. There you go. Have you got sound now?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better. Oh, we can all hear you now, rather than just me.
Right. That's much. I was just complaining. Yes, I'm in London. And it's a pretty. I think I can feel some little ray of sun hitting the side of my face, but it could just be my vivid imagination.
You've got a lot of sun in the side.
Exciting.
Yeah. And tell us what you do, Adi.
I work for AbilityNet. I'm an accessibility consultant at AbilityNet, and a lot of the work I do is talk to organisations and chat with them, let them help them to realise the importance of accessibility, the importance of making their products more usable by people with disabilities. And so that's the kind of work I do. I've got vested interests because I'm blind myself. So when the digital world is more accessible, it means I can do more things like book concert tickets and do shopping and go on dating apps. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I've just got a good friend recently. So yes.
yeah, great start. So Hector, moving swiftly on. Hector, tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Hector Minter. I'm the accessibility evangelist for Microsoft in Europe. And I mean, Mark, I just love the idea that Adi is actually in Barbados. Yeah, right now, that classic digital nomad, just checking in. That's what that sun really is.
Yeah.
We know.
His hair's grown surprisingly quickly. He must have a lot of sunshine.
Can I make a suggestion? I'm so sorry, Hector. Sorry, I know this is your bit now. Can I make a suggestion for the people that can't see us all, right? Why don't we give them some audio description? Why don't we describe ourselves?
Go on,
really
then.
Happy
I'll go first.
You go first, yeah.
So, balding, mid-50s, white male. Is this a dating app thing, Adi? You're trying to get us into
I think we're going to be listening to your voice for the next 3 days, so they need an image of you, I think.
Yeah,
definitely.
There you go.
Definitely.
Well, I don't know how that's going to differentiate me from Hector, to be fair. He's got his glasses on and I haven't.
I was just going to add that differentiation. Slightly younger, bald, white male, wearing a Microsoft Ability t-shirt,
well done.
And with a more experimental COVID beard.
Your beard's definitely... But you had that longer, wispy one at first, didn't you? That you then brought it back in a bit.
Actually, do you know what? I went to the barber for the first time in 23 years, Mark. Just to get my beard done. That was my COVID news. I think we've been really rude here. We're leaving Heather out.
So Heather, please introduce yourself and give yourself an audio description.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Hi, everybody. I'm Heather Hepburn. I'm the accessibility lead at Skyscanner. And just very briefly, in case people don't know Skyscanner, we're a digital travel business. We were founded back in 2003 in Edinburgh. We're a tech startup, and we now have, well, in normal times, we have over 100 million travellers every month using our website and apps to find and book travel. So accessibility is super important for us. The visual description, I can see myself in your monitor and I'm looking more tanned than I am. So I think I'm in a very dark grey Glasgow room. So the light is making me look a bit more tanned. I've got long blonde hair. I've got my glasses on so I can see you all. Yeah, and I'm so excited to be here. Last year was such a fantastic couple of days, absolute highlight of my year. So really, really looking forward to the whole day and the next couple of days as well. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thanks. Audio description's great. I mean, I never knew you wore glasses, and I never imagined Hector with a beard. So this is great. Thank you. That's been the highlight so far.
So I've got a couple of questions ready, but first thing I want to do is very specifically say thank you to Hector, because we started talking about this probably this time last year, just as the doors shut on TechShare Pro 2019. What should we try and do next year? And you were obviously keen to get Microsoft involved. We were keen to work with you. It's obviously not quite turned out the way that we planned. But that's only true in the sense of the physical space. The program is incredible, and a huge part of that is thanks to you. And you've pulled in, as we called it, your Minto's moonshots. The big ones, they all landed. So
unbelievable,
yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, and actually, I was reflecting on this last night. It just goes to show that we're putting accessibility, where it should be. At the top of business, top of government conversations. We've got a lot further to go, but yeah, I'm delighted, and thank you for allowing us in, to sponsor it. Just to reflect on it, I think Google just did an amazing job last year.
Yeah.
Chris really, pulled that together with Kira and the team. So, I love to think that accessibility is one of those spaces where the tech world can really start to collaborate, share best practice, move the whole industry forward. So yeah, absolute, hats off to Google last year, but let's see what the digital version brings this year. I definitely think it gave us an opportunity to bring in a wider audience. I know we've got people joining us from all across the world. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully this is just the opportunity to put TechShare Pro firmly on the map in the calendar.
Yeah. Well, I was saying to you, we have 1,000 seats in the system, in the conference platform, and having just checked, I know that we're above 900. So we are going to have to shut the door. We are going to have to keep people out, which we wouldn't have expected necessarily. I mean, last year was 300 in the room at Google, so that's a significant step up. We were.
Yeah.
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 We were.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the team and my colleagues, it's been hard, but because it is a digital company, we've been all right. We've been really good at keeping in touch with one another, and we've been getting on working from home really well. So that the whole lockdown side has been fine, and the company are brilliant. They look after us all really, really well. For our travellers, yeah, it's been a really difficult time. I mean, as staff as well as Skyscanner, we all absolutely love to travel, so we have a real affinity with our users, and it's just we're trying to help as much as we can. We have a lot of information online around where's safe to travel, where's opening up, all the different restrictions in different countries. So we're really trying to help there. The numbers of people are dropping. It's changing all the time, as restrictions change. But we've been seeing a lot of green shoots, as they say. So things will be coming good. But yeah, it's hard for everyone.
Cool. So I'm going to just ask you to talk a little bit about sessions. It's not difficult for me in the first instance to pick one out. The 11:50 slot, Hector, with Cindy. That you, that's your first moonshot. So just so you know, the moonshots are the ones that Hector said I might be able to. And sure enough, there we've got an incredible lineup there. And when we were doing the rehearsal last week, you were saying you don't think this has ever been pulled off. That this is probably the first time of its type.
I think we've always looked at the American events and just been so impressed with kind of some of the names, some of the brands they've been able to bring in to talk about disability inclusion and accessibility. But yeah, we've been making a lot of progress here in Europe, and I think specifically in the UK, we've really been getting the business community and really just Microsoft customers to care about disability inclusion and accessibility. We put a lot of investment into the accessibility of our products, but we're finally kind of getting businesses and enterprises to talk about it. Yeah, and not just a niche conversation, but a mainstream conversation. So yeah, because of all that engagement, we managed to bring WPP and Unilever to join Cindy Rose, our Western Europe AVP, to talk about the business imperative, about how this is just great sense for business to focus on, this almost like this last mile of D&I that hasn't been done to the impact that others have. Mm. So they'll be coming to give their personal experiences, but also just to explain how this is just great business sense. So we hope that this message reaches many other business leaders. The other thing I just loved about when I remember that session really well, Mark, when we were just kind of what I would call riffing. Yeah, like could we do this or could we do that? And what I love about the session is that it covers product, Unilever, technology, Microsoft, but also how people with disabilities are represented in brand and advertising. So I just think it's just going to be such a cool conversation. I mean, the CEO of WPP is rocking up to TechShare Pro. I mean, that's that's awesome. Let's go. Yeah.
One in 5 advertisements, I think he said, didn't he?
Right.
Or somebody did. Yeah. 1 in 5 advertisement on the planet.
Yeah. Think of the impact we can have. And just think of the routine accessibility we can start to deliver when a company like that starts to really put it on the agenda. So I'm deeply grateful for Mark for showing up today. I think this is a great opportunity.
And Heather, one of the things that makes me think of, we were doing some work over the summer around within AbilityNet about marketing. I think one of the things it's doing is giving people in your role, the accessibility evangelist within your networks, the chance to say, look, that's happening over there. That's what I'm hoping we're doing. I mean, we may get the unconverted in the room because the business leaders are there, but clearly TechShare Pro is mainly an event for the converted. It's mainly for the people who want to go to an event about accessibility and want to know more about how to do what they currently do. But I think that the chance to say, look at these guys talking about it, that seems like an incredibly sort of valuable opportunity.
I think also everyone's at different stages in their evangelism. So last year, I still refer to my notes from the conference last year. It informed a heap of presentations and talks that I did. It gave me so much information that I've used all year. So I know that I've grown and Skyscanner have grown as well in that space, but I'm hoping more people can do the same, and I'm hoping to learn even more that I can take that journey on even further. So I think it's for absolutely everybody at all stages.
Mm. And Addy, you had some contact. We've been doing some work with Unilever. I mean, that's they're really getting under the skin of what they need to do, aren't they? We've done quite a lot of different things with them. They're moving way beyond the sort of tokenistic diversity and inclusion. We'll do accessibility as well. They've really begun to connect the two together, I think.
No, absolutely. I think it's incredible, the work at Unilever. It's amazing the way they've really embedded it into the systems in the organization, and it really helps. They've got buy-in from the CEO of Unilever. So even for example, with their websites, they just have to be accessible. There's no questions about it. There's no evangelism going on. It's just like you have to do it, and now figure out how you're going to do it. That's it, and it's and that's pretty unique. We don't get to see that, but yeah, and I think the conference. I'm really excited for the conference. I think it's got something for everyone. The non-converted. There's a lot of high level. Talking about the business case, why it's important. There's a lot of that going on, and having mainstream leaders at the organizations really helped me to sell it to people, to bring them along. And then obviously we've got the deep dive sessions, which go into particular topics, and obviously that's helpful for the people who are already working in accessibility.
Yeah. And anything on the agenda today then, Addy, that you would pick out?
Well, I'm really excited for the opening talk, and I've met Lena there from Unilever, so it'll be really nice to see her on stage. And then personally, being blind and I used to play a lot of computer games when I was young, so it was almost like when I lost my sight, I stopped playing games and I had to become a little bit more academic and stuff. And I think I still begrudge it a little bit. So I'm really looking forward to this person called Sightless Combat. And so he's going to be doing a little workshop, and really, really interesting to hear how he plays computer games being blind. So it's not the most academic, but it sounds fun to me.
Yeah. Well, I think he's really looking. It's very practical what he's doing. He's going to just show you what he does and talk about the different things that happen. Hector.
Hector's got his hand up. Teams has just told me.
Okay.
We're using the tools. We're using the tools the way they're meant to be.
Accessible, that. That's great.
I know. Just on Sightless Combat, we had the opening of the Microsoft Store last year in Oxford Circus, and I'm not joking. He kicked my ass at Killer Instinct for about 3 hours. Yeah, and I kept coming back for more, and it was just an amazing experience. Like, just to sit with somebody and see how they're using all those audio cues to cue into the game, and just things that I just ignored in the game completely. He was completely tuned in.
Does he not
it's a masterclass.
Does he look at the screen at all? Can he
Not
see
really.
it?
Not really. I mean, he faces the sound, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's just brilliant to see. And also, actually, that had a real impact on Cindy, who's joining the Microsoft session. I mean, she sat and watched us for quite a while, just playing along, and that's part of the game, isn't it? Is like exposure. We have this proximity drives empathy. It's like once you just sit with somebody and just understand, what the process is, that's what gives you buy-in. When you just see how empowering technology can be. So yeah, I'm totally looking forward to that one. I also just think the gaming industry have really taken accessibility, seriously. And for anything from the Xbox adaptive controller through to the sort of the blind gamers side of things, through to the rigging up specific controllers and then building accessibility into the game platform, into the games as well as the platforms. I think all of us have a bit to learn there about how to embed it in an industry. So yeah, I'm equally looking forward to a lot of that gaming stuff.
Cool. And Heather, have you got one in particular you're going to pick out?
So, well, I'm really looking forward to hearing Caroline at 11:15 about the valuable 500s, because her talk again last year blew me away. So I'm really excited about an update. The couple of business sessions that you've got, the panel discussion, and then the one at 5 o'clock later, I think will be super interesting. And then I am personally interested in the finance sector stuff. I love listening to Paul from Barclays. So I was in the finance sector before I moved to Skyscanner. So I think we can learn a lot from that industry. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to be tuning into that. I
think that's interesting, actually, because we were a bit unsure about having a focus specifically on that. But so much of it is customer focused, really, about customer service. And the other thing, when we're doing the rehearsal, we're saying, people are so familiar with doing their banking on their phone now that it's become a norm. But it's actually one of the most sensitive pieces of information that anybody would ever share. But we've crossed that line between I feel comfortable doing it on my phone. And then we've also got Monzo in there, who don't have branch network. And they're talking about having to do face-to-face work out in the community around building the trust with vulnerable customers, and not just about accessibility, just broadly customer service, but in particular around vulnerable customers. So yeah, I think that will be really fascinating, both of the sessions, one in response to COVID and all the things that have happened because of that, and then the other one about the actual sharing of information and the nature of that information sharing. Yeah, cool. So we've got a couple of minutes left, and then we're going to have a break. We're going to put some holding slides up where we do some stuff in the background, and we're going to get going at 11 o'clock. I just want to briefly mention, I'm going to switch over to the conference platform and just underline to people, I can't tell whether anybody's even watching us at the moment, so we're just getting used to this new way of working. So there's just a couple of things. I was mentioning this to you guys. The program tab that's inside, if you click on the VCM button at the top left-hand corner, there is a schedule which just gives you a very quick overview. The schedule is simply this whole session that's running now, but the program actually shows you what's inside the schedule, and that's a web page from our site there, and you can click on any of those buttons and join the session. So if you haven't clocked that yet, that's a really useful way to find your way around. So you click on the top left-hand corner VCM button within the team, and then the program button, which is about fifth across the top bar, will take you into a more detailed list of what's happening at any time. Something else to mention, The main sessions, the stuff that we're in now, there's unlimited numbers. You need to watch out though for anything that happens at lunchtime and at 4 o'clock. Those are workshops and they've got a 250 person limit because they're being run as Teams meetings, and so they're more interactive. What we've got here is a live stream going out, but the meetings are actually a chance to chat and talk and connect up. So those sessions do have limited numbers, so you will have to watch out. And if you find one that's full, I'm afraid you'll have to go on to the next one. It's worth mentioning, of course, as well, that everything's being recorded and will be shared out. It will be shared out within the platform here for a few days, I think until this time next week. And then we'll have all the videos and we'll collect them all together and publish them as we did last year at TechShare Pro. That'll probably be January before we do that. We've got over 50 sessions in the next 3 days. So there's a fair amount of video editing and uploading that's going to be needed before we've created the library of events for you. But they'll all be available publicly in the new year. Down the left-hand side, you can also find some activity and some chat, and you can find people to help you. There's a help room in there as well. So that's the place to look for help, but also find other people. You can also meet with people, create an instant meeting with somebody, look for their name. You may need to wait until you've worked out who else is here. And a good way of finding out who else is here is to go into the speed networking, which is also along the top button next to the program. So the speed networking, you drop in and you can chat with people and meet up. So I'm going to leave that because I think there's a lot of familiarity needed here. We're only just beginning to get to grips with what we're doing in the space. I'm just going to go back to my guests and say thank you. Adi, Hector, Heather, thanks so much for joining us. And what we're going to do next, we're going to have a 5-minute break. There'll be play some holding slides, and I'll be back to kick off the session. And then we've got Jessica from Microsoft to provide the formal welcome to everybody. So thanks very much. Have a great day, guys. And I'm sure I'll see you somewhere in the mix during the day.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Hi everyone, welcome to TechShare Pro. I'm Mark Walker from AbilityNet. I'm here as your host, and I'm in a studio. This time last year I was on a stage, and for any of you that have attended or run virtual events, you'll know this is a slightly different world to the physical world that we're used to. I'm going to be your host here. I'm going to be joining the dots between the various sessions. I'm going to be trying to get some feedback through the Q&A and make sure that people can ask questions into the audience, from the audience into the panels, and various other bits and bobs. I'm also the join into the event team. I'm like you, just finding my way around the platform and making sure I can click on the right bits. Thank you for joining us. There's over 850 people registered for TechShare Pro this year. Last year we had 280, so a huge uptake. Obviously the virtual world makes that possible for us. But I just want to very briefly introduce you to TechShare Pro, and then we'll get on with the meat of this morning's session. So TechShare Pro, we started work on TechShare Pro with the RNIB. This is the 4th year, so 2016. And we created, from their event called TechShare, we created an event for people who do the actual work on accessibility and design and making the world a more accessible place. That community has grown enormously in the time that we've been working on TechShare Pro, but it's also a global community. So we started off as a UK event. We then started getting connected into Europe, and this year I think we're reaching out beyond that as well. You can see from our sponsors the types of businesses that are interested in accessibility now. Microsoft, we've worked with very closely. Microsoft is actually a founding partner of AbilityNet 22 years ago. So we've worked with Microsoft a lot over the years. But Barclays, Google and Sony have been involved in TechShare Pro for several years. Business Disability Forum, Crawford Technology, Jadu have all been involved. RNIB has worked with us as founders, and the UK Accessible Formats Association. They're newly joined this year. They've provided some videos and some input around accessible formats. So a family of and connecting up of people interested in accessibility. And I don't know whether you caught everything from the last session. I was just having a chat with Hector and Addy and Heather. And Hector made the point that I think within accessibility there's lots of collaboration and cooperation. We're all trying to make a digital world that's accessible to all. There's a sort of a vision that we all share about how the world could be. That we're trying to fulfill. So, and obviously TechShare Pro is all about that same vision, about trying to make a world that we know could be more accessible to everybody, and bring that to life and share that world across all sorts of different services and industries and platforms. So what you're going to get today and over the next 3 days is a huge range of content. I honestly can't believe the amount of different topics that we're covering. We've got 50 different sessions, got over 100 contributors to those sessions. They come from all different types and sizes of organizations, and they bring all sorts of different perspectives. We're covering global top-level discussions. The Global Leaders session this morning is incredible, having a panel that we do from businesses like WPP, Unilever and Microsoft talking about their investment in accessibility and explaining how it fulfills their business goals. And then we've also got lots of technical and hands-on content in workshops that are scattered through the sessions over the next 3 days. And we've also got some videos and some other content that shares top tips, which you can access at different times. On a practical level, all of the streaming that goes out is open to everybody, but the sessions that are marked up as workshops are in a different format. They're in Teams. We're using Teams meetings to hold those so that they're a little bit more interactive. You can get a bit more discussion going. You need to know that there's a ceiling of 250 on those meetings. And so when that comes, the first lot will come at lunchtime. There's, I think, at least 3, possibly 4 running at the same time. So you can find something, and they'll all be recorded and shared afterwards. But you do need to get in there if there's something you definitely want to go and see. It's worth noting that you'll need to get in there. I suspect 1 or 2 of them may fill up. Without further ado, I'm pleased to say, having worked with Microsoft this year, you can imagine the change around. We were all going to be in Plexel in the Olympic Park in London. We took the number of 300 last year. We were going to add another 50 and have 350 people in the room to join us. We're now got 1,000, we're all online. The whole world has shifted in ways that we all know have changed a lot of our own lives as well as other people's. But along the way, Microsoft have been fantastic as a partner and really helped us a lot. So what I'd like to do is hand over to Jessica Rafuse from Microsoft, who's going to provide a formal welcome to the event. Over to you, Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica Rafuse, and hello from Seattle. I'm a white female with blonde hair, glasses, a white sweater, and a blue scarf. I lead strategic partnerships and policy for accessibility at Microsoft, and I am thrilled to be here at TechShare Pro 2020. It has been an absolute pleasure to be the headline sponsor this year at the event. We have been working closely with AbilityNet and are so proud and so honored to be a part of everything that they've been able to accomplish. A huge thank you to the AbilityNet team, to our presenters, to our speakers, to our coordinators, everyone that's been involved on this really dynamic and educational event. We are going to have a great week together. And although I wish we could all be together in person, collaborating, having a cuppa, I wish I could get my hands on some HP sauce here in the US, but I am blown away by the appetite and the scale that we are able to accomplish by doing this virtually with all of you. And we are bringing some of our Microsoft colleagues along with us. At Microsoft, our mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. You'll have the chance to meet some of our senior leaders, our policy teams, our innovators with disabilities, and our passionate account teams who are delivering accessible technology every day. All of us together, committed to this incredible inclusion journey. I'd like to personally thank them for their sessions this week. Yep, TechShare Pro is different this year. COVID-19 has changed our world, the way we work, the way we learn, the way we play. Technology has empowered all of us to reinvent our lives. It allows me to sit comfortably here in my home office, which has a lovely bookshelf with leather-bound books and odds and ends, and a chair in the background. But in reality, it looks a little more like this. I'm surrounded by kids and toys covering the floor, a tiny brown dog, there's a crib in the corner filled with stuffed animals, there's a play tent that's spilling with books and a train track. Now just imagine me navigating through this labyrinth of toys and boys and dogs using my power wheelchair to get over to my desk. But hey, this is what we do. People with disabilities are masters at problem solving, creating innovative solutions and adapting to uncertainty. Yes, people with disabilities can teach us a whole lot about adjusting to a global pandemic. So let's meet Swetha. She is a brilliant engineer with long brown hair and a stunning smile, and she's deaf. Swetha primarily uses captioning and lip reading in meetings. And lip reading is hard work. It's very fatiguing. I will never forget sitting in the hack tent with Swetha during one week. This is the week where we get to all come together and work on fun, cool solutions for the future. Swetha told me that when she talked to her parents using video chat, she would ask them to turn off all the lights so that she could focus on their mouths to lip read. Swetha's hat was to blur out the background, to really allow her to focus on her parents. Now look at Blur. We are all using Blur in our new home offices to cover up laundry piles, kids' toys, and to truly focus on the person on the other side of the call. Now, Blur isn't the only feature that was designed by people with disabilities, but enjoyed by so many. Captioning has gone from an innovative solution by deaf and hard of hearing people to really delight people without disabilities as well. In fact, the use of captioning in Teams has increased 30 times since the beginning of the pandemic. This huge leap in usage reminds us that over 70% of disabilities are invisible. If you meet the captivating Donna Sarkar, you would never know that she has dyslexia. But folks like Donna have been critical in our development of tools like Immersive Reader. Now, Immersive Reader is a suite of really helpful tools like highlighting parts of speech, text-to-speech, and picture dictionary. I don't have a learning disability, but I use Read Aloud every day because it helps me to get through some dense, maybe sometimes boring content. Did I mention that I'm a lawyer? So better reading comprehension thanks to people with dyslexia like Donna. Immersive Reader has increased by 560% since the beginning of the pandemic. So this demand and accessibility tells us that it has to be more than just the right thing to do. Accessibility is also a business imperative. And the research supports it. Disability inclusive companies outperform their peers. On average, over a 4-year period, disability inclusive companies demonstrated 28% higher revenue, double the net income, and 30% higher economic profit margins than their peers. Yep, accessibility is good for business. So at Microsoft, we're treating it like a business by building it into all that we do. A sustainable culture of accessibility means building it right into the DNA of who we are as a company, starting with people. Research shows that people with disabilities have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. 1 in 5 people with disabilities have lost their jobs, compared to 1 in 7 without. So we are including people with disabilities into our talent pipeline. We're building out those communities within our employee base, and we're spreading awareness throughout the company. Now, how do we get it to stick? We want it to stay around. And systems are really critical for this long-term sustainment, both externally through partnerships and feedback from the community. In fact, we're seeing a 200% increase of call volumes coming into our disability answer desk. People are reaching out, but also internally with things like maturity modeling and governance. And you can't build it into the company at Microsoft without including it in our products. This means ensuring that people with disabilities can consume, communicate, and create across all of our products. And last up is the future. This is creating a hack culture. Hack is a good thing. It's also bringing the power of AI to people with disabilities and leaning into that subject matter expertise in all that we do. And this week, we are all in it together. So I challenge you, as you participate in this week full of valuable information, think about how you can impact the future of accessibility. Maybe it's something simple, like using an accessibility checker before you send an email, or maybe joining an employee group or an NGO that supports people with disabilities. Next up, think about who you can bring along with you in this journey. We need everyone's help here. There's a lot of work to do. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for having me, and have a great week, everyone.
Thank you, Jessica. What a fantastic overview as well of the impact that accessibility can have on people's lives, and also an underlining really what Microsoft has done in terms of investing in accessibility and the ways in which that's worked its way through your systems. I know so many different people we've met so many different people across your teams, not just the accessibility teams, but other parts as well, and seeing that culture shift, that's something that I know that has been important for AbilityNet, for Microsoft. So moving on with this message, this opening session for us is really about putting accessibility on the map. There's lots of people out there who, like me, will have been working in accessibility for many years and always been wondering how we win that case. How do we make the case for accessibility being something we invest in? How do we win the case for making sure that people recognize both its value to the individuals who are getting access to services, but also the business advantage that can come with it? And that's the theme really for today's day, is to really bring that to the surface. And obviously this morning is really about that. So I'm pleased to say that what we're able to do next is hear from Sony. who are also one of our silver sponsors, about their investment and also some of the work that they're doing in Europe. And Ulrika, who you'll hear from, is also on the panel tomorrow when we'll be discussing the European Accessibility Act. And also tomorrow we'll be talking about the relationship between the need for legislation which moves the dial, and obviously for businesses and organisations to take that legislation on and then use it to their advantage. So I'm going to hand over to Shiro Kambe, who's the Senior Executive Vice President. He's a Corporate Executive Officer at Sony Corporation. So again, I really want to underline, it's brilliant having Jessica opening our conference for us, a really senior position in Microsoft, showing the way that business is taking a subject seriously, and similarly with Shiro Kambe-san having his input as well. So over to you to tell us more about Sony's investment.
Hello, good morning. I'm Shiro Kambe, Senior Executive Vice President, Sony Corporation, based in Tokyo. I oversee multiple corporate functions at Sony's global headquarters, including the important area of sustainability in all its forms. I'm delighted to address you today to share the importance of accessibility to our company and business. From game and network service to music, pictures, electronics, image sensors, and financial services, Sony's purpose is to fill the world with emotion through the power of creativity and technology. Through our offerings, we strive to deliver emotionally compelling experience to you, connect people, and contribute to supporting health and safety. Following the passionate introduction from Caroline Casey at TechShare Pro 2019, Sony joined the Variable 500 initiative to promote disability inclusion. This initiative keeps us conscious of the external accountability we have signed up to. At Sony, we embrace diversity and believe in turning it into strength, and technology will enable us to do more. We must find inclusion as an opportunity. Effectively addressing challenges in the areas of accessibility will in turn improve outcomes for all our stakeholders and society. Changing demographics also indicate more people requiring assistive support in future, which further underlines the growing need to design products and services to be as accessible as possible for everyone. People are at the core of Sony's business and values, and accessibility is one of our key focus areas towards a sustainable society and future. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce the importance of these topics to Sony. And thank you to AbilityNet for making the event possible this year. Next, I hand to my colleague Ulrika Hartwig, who heads up our European Accessibility Promotion Office. Thank you and take care.
Thank you, Kambe-san. My name is Ulrika Haltrich. It is my second TechShare Pro event, and I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to talk with you today. I work for Sony Europe and I'm based in Germany. For over 10 years, Sony has been active in the international and European technology standardization areas of e-inclusion and active assisted living, where collaboration takes place to define solutions which will help drive the evolution of accessibility. We launched through Digital Europe the work of 2 international TV accessibility standards, for example. In the area of active assisted living, which is defined as systems, devices and services which support the well-being, health and independent living of people with special needs of all age groups, I am the chair of the IEC System Committee for IAL. Sony organizes our accessibility teams by regions. As part of my responsibilities in Sony, I head up the European Accessibility Promotions Office, and we have corresponding teams in Japan and the US. We are joining other accessibility awareness events such as SideWorld in Japan, CSUN in the US, and we are proud to again be a Solver sponsor for TechShare Pro in 2020. Our mission is to create a fully inclusive Sony world that can help change lives, and we appreciate that our effort supports and forms a part of an industry-wide collaboration. But to find the most optimum accessibility solutions that will help change lives should involve discussions across all stakeholders in the ecosystem for all product categories. Our message to this year's event is let's engage in rich discussions and debate this year while keeping ongoing collaboration and to promote innovation as the keywords. Accessibility is not about an annual event, but to put in place solid foundations that can drive sustainable outcomes. I hope you all have a successful event, and thanks to AbilityNet, Microsoft and the other sponsors for making this year's event possible under the challenging coronavirus circumstances. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Kami-san and Ulrika. And a huge thank you to Sony as well, obviously, for being involved in the event. And just shows how far we've come, in the last 4 years with TechShare Pro, hearing about Sony's investment in accessibility and the global impact of that, and a change in, certainly my perspective from seeing accessibility within the UK into this bigger, broader picture. So, and also within there's a mention of last year's event. Anybody who was there will remember being blown away by Caroline Casey. I've got Caroline Casey here to have a chat with. So Caroline, I think you're waiting. Hiya. How are you doing?
Well, I'm good. I've just come from Dubai to your screen. And for anybody who's like me, who's visually impaired, quick audio description, I am not wearing a catsuit dress this year with white boots, but I'm wearing a fairly crazy orange and yellow shirt with orange earrings and black rimmed glasses that makes me look like a character from The Incredibles.
You look fantastic. Well, you looked fantastic last year. I mean, the impact you had on the stage just by walking on the stage, obviously. I remember, though, that you were quite nervous last year. You were talking about the fact that you were going to a tech event and you weren't feeling too techy. Have you got over that barrier now?
Oh, I was really very emotional last year and very nervous. And it just shows you, I really feel and understand often the greatest barrier to any success is fear. But I'm coming back now and I just watching Sony and saw the valuable 500 symbol and the level of pride I have, really how far we've come and how the tech community has been an incredible support to me because I told them I was scared.
Well, honestly, it was just a fantastic session. And I mean, wouldn't it be brilliant if we could do the same thing again? Because it's obviously that empathy that you get in a room anyway, isn't it? Just having everybody together. I mean, that's obviously, I don't know, have you been traveling around? You say you're in Dubai. Have you been traveling very much?
Yeah,
then, right?
So in the last 24 hours, I've been in Canada, Geneva, Dubai, Australia. Tomorrow I go to Australia. I go back into San Francisco today. So yeah, but without the air miles.
Yeah. So that obviously it goes without saying it's going great guns. The valuable 500 is clearly it's lit a fuse of some kind, and you're off and running. And
okay, I have to. Can I just tell the announcement? So I've got to explain. Look, the valuable 500 was created to find the missing piece that would systemically integrate disability into our businesses, to stop it being the poor cousin of the inclusion family, to go from niche to normal. And our missing piece was to get a collective and critical mass of the world's most influential CEOs and their brands. So that was it. It was to raise the conversation of disability to leadership level. And we thought, okay, there was one stat that we were terrified about and wanted to change. The inclusion delusion stat, which said 90% of our companies were passionate about inclusion, and yet only 4% considered disability. So I am delighted to come back to say we are no longer a campaign, because as of this morning, we're at 342 companies, okay? And that represents 12 million employees, 31 countries, 52 sectors, 4.5 trillion in revenue. And can I just say, all of your sponsors are valuable 500 companies. No. Microsoft and Unilever, the first. You know, I got to say, this is exciting. Sony, hugely. And when you see this critical mass, what we've done is now, it's not a campaign. We're moving from a campaign. Do you know that we are the fastest growing CEO community in the world outside Global Compact, which has 11,000, which is pretty good second place. And we're going to be launching phase 2 in the new year to activate this historic community for system change.
Fantastic. So yes. Yeah. Well, what a year then. I mean, given all the other things that could have happened, what an amazing year.
Yeah, it was an amazing year. And I think the real thing that's happened has been the pandemic. And so from a very heart, everybody's used to my heart speaking. You know, from a broken heart, you get an open heart. And I say that because I think the pandemic has done two huge things. One, it has proven that systems can and will change if the intention is there. Secondly, we have understood that we have mainstreamed exclusion. We have blown up the gross inequity that exists in our world, but we have also seen solutions. And one of the clear pieces is we speak to the right for freedom to speech. Well, what about the right for us to receive? And look at how we are now having to communicate, ensuring that it's communication for all. So what's happened for us since Davos of this year, we arrived with 240 companies. You know, we've been getting one a day. Wow. And that's because, yeah, seriously. And you know why? There's 3 reasons. One is business now realize they cannot say we have other priorities. That's the key. We no longer need to make the case for disability business inclusion across supply chain. It's now risk-proofing a business. It's about making sure that you are taking care of your opportunity for growth, innovation, and insight. And lastly, I think most importantly, the community of the Valuable 500 is a place to multiply our innovation and effect, and most importantly, to share best practice and to learn together. Because there is fear we'll be getting cancelled out if we get it wrong, and that's why communities are so valuable. So in some ways, the pandemic has removed all the excuses. So it's like, no more excuses. You know, 1.3 billion people with a mother and father, 54% of our global population, and probably the most important thing is intersectionality. Yeah. It is integration, intersectionality, build from the beginning.
Can I just pick up on that then? Because I think that's a word that I think might win the TechShare Pro bingo.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so tell me a bit about, explain briefly what you mean by it. And then also I think if you're looking ahead, what's going to happen next, do you think, in next year? Where are we going to end up? Because that intersectionality must be part of that, I guess.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say something. I didn't expect to get a particular email that I got yesterday. I'm not gonna say who because I do not believe in shaming. An organization came back to us and said, so we're very happy on our work on gender, on our work on LGBTQ, but we're gonna just stay there for now, and we're going to potentially roster in disability in 2022. Now, I'm going to say, let me just tell you what intersectionality is. I'm going to replace that word with human being. So I am a woman. I have a visual impairment and a disability, and I am proud of both of those. Intersectionality is about not categorizing our humanity into silos which compete against themselves. We need to look at universally human corporate cultures. Where are we going in 2021? Well, I can't give you our trade secret yet for the Valuable 500. It's going to be launched, and it's huge. It's going to be launched in the first quarter of next year. But what I will say is one of the key pieces and the differentiating factor for the Valuable 500, aside from it being global, CEO-led, and value chain, is integration, infusing, and really looking at a holistic approach. I really do think we're going to see a removal of the siloed approach to inclusion and bring it on.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Caroline, thank you so much. It's been so brilliant having you. That video that we've got on our website is just so popular of your talk last week. Yeah, you inspired so many people. It's amazing what's been achieved as well in the year. You know, and as you say, looking ahead, you're starting to build those new pathways. It's just fantastic. And
well,
you know, of course, from our point of view, I mean, you know, you have to see who we've got on our agenda now. That we've.
Well,
you know,
can I say that?
That's amazing, isn't it?
Say I am so proud. You had Sony, and then you have Microsoft, Unilever, and you have WPP. And I need to make a particular shout out to Mark Reed, because Omnicom were our strategic partner phase 1. And he was like, competition does not mean I'm not going to get involved. And this issue is big enough for all of us to have space. So I am so delighted, and I can't wait to hear that panel coming up.
Yeah,
thank you for having me back.
No, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're incredibly busy, and good luck. Keep it up. And if there's anything we can do to help, let us know.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. Thank you. So, well, what a fantastic campaign the Valuable 500 is leading, and that point about intersectionality, I heard it several times during the rehearsals when we were talking about what the panels are going to be discussing. It really is, where we're going next, I think, is embedding this into other topics and connecting joining the dots between accessibility and disability and other inclusion issues. What we're going to go to next is an interview between my colleague Robin Christopherson from AbilityNet and Paul Smythe from Barclays. And really this next step is really around looking at diversity and inclusion and where accessibility belongs in that mix. We do hear a lot of corporate organisations talking about their investment in D&I, as it gets called, but we're never necessarily very clear where the accessibility belongs in that mix. So Paul and Robin are going to talk about investment and the ways of measuring the value of that investment, and particularly the value to shareholders. So over to you, Paul and Robin.
Hi, Paul. How are you doing?
Hey, Robin. Yeah, I'm good.
Great stuff. Now, we're going to talk about digital inclusion, how important it is. We're both disabled, we're both visually impaired, and know firsthand how important digital inclusion is, inclusive design. We wouldn't be where we are today, personally, ourselves and disabled people across the world, if it wasn't for the technology, much of which is inclusive out of the box these days. But that's no good if what you're accessing online, on websites, mobile apps, etc., aren't inclusive. And, I don't know about you, but for me, capture those distorted images that you absolutely have to crack if you want to be able to sign up for a particular service or whatever. The audio version, a nightmare, is something that instantly pops into my head as kind of keeping me awake at night. And when it's inclusive, it's a dream. So I wish I could literally buy everything that I need from Amazon, because it just works for me and it's nice and easy and accessible. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, completely agree. Everything you said, Robin. I think accessibility is so important on a personal perspective, and it's so important professionally as well. As an accessibility leader of Barclays, I'm kind of lifted up and shrunk back down on a daily basis when I see, when we get accessibility right and when there's room for improvement. And I think we know the kind of business advantage which this sort of panel coming into is all about, that there's a multitude of benefits for why accessibility is good, right? Why organizations should start doing stuff around accessibility and why they should continue to kind of champion for accessibility. And I know you wanted to sort of have a chat about what some of these benefits are, right? And sort of sprinkle some examples to bring this to life for folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So these numbers, we've got a few juicy ones, are really about making the decision makers, the budget holders, maybe your board of trustees or even your investors really sit up and listen. So these are the carrots of the business advantage that inclusive design brings you, but we'll definitely look at other areas later on. But yeah, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, sure. So, I guess the short story, why accessibility matters, commercial benefit, legal requirement, right thing to do. So let's take the business benefit front. So if I'm the accessibility leader of Barclays or of a bank, folks usually talk about the 1.3 billion people globally with a disability, the $8 trillion spending power. We've just celebrated in the UK Purple Tuesday, and focusing on the purple pound, which these are big numbers being bandied around. I think, that disabled consumers are often sort of overlooked and underserved, and they deserve better service. They deserve to be valued. And I think the incredible, fantastic, feisty firework is Caroline Casey, talked about this at last TechShare Pro, right? About that value of disabled people to businesses, to the economy, to society, when we really lean in and include and involve disabled people. The evidence is that, Accenture Research did some stuff that showed, companies that focus on recruiting, retaining disabled talent, when they raise their game on disability inclusion, they raise their profits, raise their bottom line. And I know at Barclays, right, we've seen this firsthand. When we launched accessible customer services like talking cash machines that helps people, customers with sight difficulties or print difficulties like dyslexia, we see customers vote with their feet and switch to our bank. Their families move to our bank because we're more welcoming, accommodating, and ultimately, we care. So, there's a really clear, compelling business reason why we do this. It's not charity or pity. It makes good business sense. And I think to your point, Robin, about the user experience, when we do accessibility well, we're able to reach more customers and have more happier customers. I mean, one example we've seen in Barclays, right, is when we redesigned our Barclays mobile banking app. So maybe 3 or 4 years back, the app had a number of accessibility issues. Things were difficult for disabled customers to do. It would cost hundreds of thousands of pounds to retrofix. And by involving accessibility experts like AbilityNet, by involving real-world disabled people, by considering accessibility as a pillar right from the start, we redesigned that app. And when we launched it, it did all the same things as before, but it was technically accessible to folks who needed it, but it was more usable and simple for everyone else. We saw App Star ratings go from 2 stars out of 5 to 4.5 stars out of 5. And again, the costs were sort of a fraction of what they would have been by thinking about accessibility from the start. So I think it's about, really doing accessibility well can really save time and cost and effort sort of downstream. So those are some of the points around the sort of business benefit. And maybe on that point about spending, we're all sort of at home, and online shopping so much more important. And I think we've both seen, Robin, we were talking about this earlier, the click away pound numbers. I think it's like, is it 7 in 10 sort of disabled online shoppers, if they encounter barriers online, they go somewhere else. Like, you and I spend crazy amounts on Amazon because it's familiar and we know it's accessible, and we're prepared to pay a little bit more because it's not really worth our while going sort of elsewhere. And really that's, in short, what all the kind of click away pound numbers point to.
Absolutely. So 86% choose to pay more. If the site is accessible, they will stick with that site. If the site is good, like I mentioned Amazon before, 83% will stick with that site. So they're more loyal, they'll pay more because they really appreciate the effort that you've put in. And as you say, if you do it in a timely way, so you don't have to retrofit, then it's not going to break the bank. And the revenue after the increase in inclusion, preferably getting disabled users involved as well, is absolutely massive. And when you bear in mind that, we're an aging population, disability gets more common in older age. By 2040, it's reckoned that 63 pence in every pound that is, spent by your customers will be, that's everyone's customers, not just Barclays, will be by people with disabilities. So that's absolutely massive. 50% of people, the research shows, will leave. They won't complete a process if they're having challenges with it. So yeah, the click away pound, it's massive and it's easily lost. So yeah, absolutely. As well as the compelling business case, the advantage that you will have to the bottom line, you have also got a legal requirement, arguably an ethical and moral requirement as well, obligation. But from a legal point of view, guys, if that's what ticks the box for your decision makers, then be aware it absolutely is a legal requirement. We've seen recent legislation applicable to the public sector really shifting the needle, and that's because for the very first time there's a named body that will monitor and enforce, i.e. fine, organisations in the public sector. So that's local authority, central government, even broadcasters like the BBC, universities, etc. They're all scrambling to do the right thing, and that's just such a massive change and a breath of fresh air. It has been a legal requirement forever, but finally we're seeing, that really, there's teeth to the legislation now. What about, ESG, for example, for people that don't know? Do you want to kind of fill people in? Because we would be remiss not to flag that this is a really important aspect of why people should do the right thing.
Yeah, no, sure, Robin, and we're really excited about the legal points you make as well of just being far clearer now. I guess on so let's talk about the ESG, or so that's environmental, social, and governance. ESG, and this really ties up to sort of brand and reputation. And I think in my mind, we're clear at Barclays that the accessibility programs we run and what we offer, has really helped in terms of bolstering our brand. And ESG is kind of one way of how we can measure that. So, as a business, we publish financial statements that sort of show our profits, but we also publish around other non-financial impact that we as a business are having. And that's around the kind of E, the environmental, so what we're doing around sort of green and climate change and so forth, around the social, so how businesses are backing, really driving societal change. So maybe around gender or around race, or increasingly around disability within that social aspect. And then the G, governance, is really around, responsibly run businesses. So, much as Barclays, we and many other big businesses will add in some of the work we do around accessibility and disability inclusion, form one element of that package of ESG reports. And it provides another way for us to tell the story of what we do in accessibility to investors and shareholders. And that's really getting more attention and importance. Because if you think, we've really seen a trend in recent months that investors, whether you're a person or a pension fund, really recognizing that, they want to invest ethically, right, in things or businesses that share their values of what's important to them. So we also recognize, that adding in disability inclusion and what we're working on there into this sort of ESG reporting is, really important for us. And we see this this trend emerging of more and more businesses following suit. So, I guess there's that on the brand and reputation. I think the final point I'd say, which is really linked to COVID, Robin, of when I look at this, it's kind of around accessibility programs are the biggest loyalty scheme that you've got. And when I think about brands and businesses that have done this well, maybe, Sainsbury's, if they prioritized online grocery shopping when COVID came in to, shielding vulnerable people, or Waitrose launched an hour at the start of the day for older and vulnerable customers, that's really important. That's so much better than any marketing sort of advertising campaign you could do, because that will really be remembered for a long time to come, right, by disabled, older, vulnerable people whose backs were sort of against the wall, so to speak. And, these brands actually went out of their way and sort of had their back. So really important to sort of hit home that loyalty factor around accessibility. But, I know accessibility is also good from the sort of fostering a diverse workforce. So do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So it works internally as well. The loyalty that you'll get from employees who feel valued. And we absolutely know now, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the more diverse a workforce, the healthier the workforce is, the better services and products that they produce, because they are going to be more inclusive. You don't want to have your products created by young white men who are, in a privileged environment or whatever. So it's really, really important that you not only have a diverse workforce that you look after and provide the right reasonable adjustments for, but that you also make sure that your choices around the internal systems that you choose to use or have developed are inclusive too. And these are obviously equally as important as those that are customer facing, because it cuts both ways. Barclays have experienced or enjoyed massive brand value from being an inclusive brand, from being very obviously, prioritizing inclusion and accessibility, but it cuts both ways as well. So when push comes to shove with COVID, say, and you might have customers that are forced into online banking for the first time, or employees that are forced to work from home and there isn't the support from their colleagues around them to help with the gaps in accessible systems, they're now having to do it themselves. And so if obviously you've prioritized accessibility beforehand, you're good to go. But otherwise, you really start crunching, don't you? Has that been an issue at all with working from home?
Absolutely, Robin. I mean, we know this theory that diverse disabled talent, so leaning on your workforce, we certainly see it that it helps kind of act as rocket fuel to propel our accessibility programs forward. We launch more accessible customer services, and therefore more disabled talent then apply for jobs with us. But I think now, particularly in COVID, we also recognise that there's some extra challenges that our workforce might face working from home, and a need to sort of move to more modern, more accessible platforms, like Microsoft Teams, what TechShare Pros run off, and kudos to Microsoft. I mean, one of the points when we think about workforce that we've done a lot of work on over this year, Robin, is really looking at tackling our internal systems, which we've audited the top 80 internal systems and suppliers that we use within the bank, and we recognise this is a long-term issue, that these systems just really aren't as accessible as they should be. And I think what we found working with all those suppliers is, a third of them were broadly accessible, a third of them were a little bit below, were kind of amber, and a third of them were really not accessible. And that's quite startling, right? 2/3 of internal systems not being accessible. So, we're on this massive journey to educate and encourage and uplift our suppliers, producing supplier guides on accessibility. You can Google, and it's a real focus of ours. But, to be clear, we have, now, started switching and selecting suppliers that, are accessible, to meet the needs of our, diverse workforce, right? So it's getting a real hot topic in that sense to us, and it's useful just to again make sure that we give it some airtime, as companies often don't really talk about what they're doing internally and the internal tools that their workforce have to use.
Absolutely, and it's obviously business critical for each individual, but also for the business as a whole, because that could really impact productivity. There may even be issues with hiring, with retention, hugely expensive, compromise agreements, that sort of thing. Hiring and retaining good talent is hard, and so you really do need to make sure that your internal systems are up to scratch. I can think within AbilityNet, two very recent choices for an internal HR platform and for a employee diversity surveying platform. We get regular surveys of well-being and satisfaction and that sort of thing. Have both been chosen based on accessibility, and neither were the sort of obvious market leading products because they just weren't cutting it. So yeah, this is big stuff. HSE, Health and Safety Executive, did some research, and they have shown that disabled employees are as productive as their able-bodied counterparts given the right adjustments. They stay longer in their jobs, and they are better at staying in work. Their sickness is down compared to their colleagues. So, they're more loyal, they're more productive because they haven't got as much sick leave, etc. So, that combined with the diversity that we talked about before, which just makes for a better working environment, and better products and services that, what is there not to like, basically. So just very quickly then, looking forward, what do you think prioritizing inclusion means for future platforms? We've seen a crisis this year, which has really shown the flaws in some of the choices that people have made where it didn't prioritize accessibility. We've seen some of the advantages where a challenge like COVID allowed Microsoft to concertina a product development roadmap for teams that was spanning several years, right down into several months, because of COVID allowing them to prioritize that. Just imagine if within Barclays, in AbilityNet, in any organization, that we had that luxury of being able to really focus on doing things to help end users and making sure that inclusion was prioritized as well, where we could be in the future and what shape we would be in when the next crisis hits.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, well, we've certainly seen, Robin, but the accessibility work we've done already to make sure that, we give a great experience to a great number of people using, our digital banking channels has really helped as COVID's come along for us to weather that storm. And I know, shameless plug, we've got a session, I think it's on 17th November, 2 p.m, which is really just drilling into this in a bit more detail. So rather than sort of unpacking it now when we're all sort of almost out of time, then, folks interested in understanding how banks and sort of customer services have been impacted by COVID and what financial services are doing, then I'd suggest kind of tune into that. But any sort of final thoughts, Robin, from you around the sort of future-proofing and looking ahead?
I just think that inclusive products, as well as being easier to use for disabled people, are easier to use for everyone. The extreme usability that we need makes it a better product for everyone. It makes it more platform independent. It's easier to, embrace new platforms because you've done things in an inclusive, in a way that means that you're reflecting best practice and it's not held together by chewing gum and string. So absolutely. And just finally, to plug that panel that you're hosting later on, more of this in much more depth with many more brains involved. But I really have enjoyed picking yours over the last 20 minutes. Thank you so much, Paul.
No, thanks, Robin.
Years and Robin, a fierce advocate for accessibility, and it's fantastic having them on our panels today. And as Paul and Robin mentioned, they'll be back this afternoon for more. So now to an incredibly exciting session for us. When we started talking about getting the business leaders involved, I don't think we really knew we'd end up here. We've got an incredible panel of global business leaders talking about their personal interest and professional value of accessibility. And to introduce them to you, I'm pleased to welcome Corey Brown, whose voice you will recognise from Channel 4, but is also a key member of the For Purple movement, which you'll explain. So over to you, Corey.
Hey, thank you, Mark. And hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Corey. I work for Channel 4. And I'm here, I guess, with the hat on of someone with a lived experience of disability. I have a severe sight impairment, and I am beyond excited to be chatting today with these three amazing business leaders who've all made commitments around disability inclusion. We're going to chat today about the journey to disability inclusion and accessibility. And I think the reason I'm so excited about the conversation that we're going to have today is just when I think about the collective power to influence and really shift the dial in this space that you three guys have collectively. I mean, come on, we've got Cindy here from Microsoft in the tech space. We've got Lena from Unilever, same applies global supply chain and household production, and Mark, WPP, such massive brand muscle. I think it's been mentioned today already, responsible for about 1 in 5 of the ads that we are exposed to. So I think this is going to be a great conversation. I'm sure you've all got some amazing insights to share. And I think the best place to start is to talk about your respective journeys thus far. Be great to hear from each of you for a couple of minutes on where you're at on that journey, why you're championing in this space, what makes you passionate about this, and some of the learnings along the way. So Cindy, can we start with you?
You're going to start with me. Excellent. Well, thank you, Corey, and thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this panel. And I know Mark and Lena and have great, are doing great work on this topic, and I'm really looking forward to this. But to answer your question, I think over the last few years for me, there's been a number of really significant moments that have opened my eyes to the human impact of accessible design and disability and inclusion. Too many to even mention, but I think the one that I remember most vividly was a few years ago, it must have been 2017, at our Future Decoded event in London at the XL. We invited this developer named Tom Nabarro onto the main stage in front of a live audience of 5,000 people. And Tom is a Microsoft super user, and he's quadriplegic. And he came onto stage with a very high-tech wheelchair and lots of tech around him. And he showed the audience how he logs in using Windows Hello facial recognition, how he uses Cortana, our virtual voice agent, to install Visual Studio on stage. And then he started coding with eye gaze. We got such amazing feedback from that session. I mean, I think half the audience probably didn't even realize these features existed. And everyone felt so moved by his story. It was just one of those moments that taught me that we really need to start putting accessibility front and center. I'll just give you one other example. Just last week, I was on Teams video chatting with a really talented young female AI engineer from Microsoft Spain. Her name is Sandra Timon, and she's partially deaf and blind. And she's a leading accessibility advocate in Spain. And she, like so many others, have helped open my eyes to the sort of the everyday power of technology to empower people with disabilities. And I've learned that, when we empower people with disabilities using technology, actually we empower everybody. So I'm just continuously learning, Corey, about the impact that we can have as a global technology company.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Cindy. Lena, should we turn to you next? Absolutely passionate about HR, I know, a great leader. So tell us a bit about your journey.
Yes. Thanks, Corey. Thanks for inviting me. And I'm so delighted to be here, and especially delighted to be here with Mark and Cindy, two of our favorite partners. So, for us, it's integrated into our business strategy. Our compass is about making sustainable living commonplace. Very simple, easy to remember our purpose as a company. 3 beliefs that underpin it, very easy to remember. Brands with purpose grow, companies with purpose last, and people with purpose thrive. So we really believe in creating an environment at Unilever where everyone thrives. We have gone out publicly and said we want to be a beacon for equity, diversity, and inclusion across the world. We've said that internally, we've said that externally, just to put that pressure on us to keep raising our game. We started this journey about 10 years ago, and the first focus was gender. 70% of our consumers and shoppers are women, and we made tremendous progress. We were out this year saying we are 50-50. We have balanced our management ranks. But then we said that's simply not enough. We have so much more to do to be this beacon for diversity and inclusion. And we set in place a couple of big commitments. One is to be the #1 employer of choice for people with disabilities everywhere in the world. And we're talking of 190 countries and barely 75 where we actually measure our employer brand. So it's a pretty big job to say we'll be #1 employer of choice for people with disabilities across the world. And the second commitment we made is that at least 5% of our workforce will be people with disabilities by 2025. So 2 big commitments that have moved us to action, because we believe that putting some audacious commitments out there has a power of focusing the mind and getting us to do some big, bold things to shift the needle on this. And I really believe proximity drives empathy. So the more we can do to make our workforce more representative of the world around us, the better it is for everyone. Because the more we increase the inclusive quotient of an organization, the more we increase the emotional awareness of an organization, the more easier it is for everyone to bring the best selves to work every day, to be the best version in Unilever every day. So in short, I'd love for Unilever to be the most inclusive company on the planet.
Wow, great ambition to have. Really awesome ambition. Mark, let's turn to you next. I kind of feel almost like we're sort of on the same bit of turf, because WPP, like Channel 4, has that huge capability to really influence the representation of disability in society. So talk to me a bit about your journey in this space.
Yeah, I think, as you say, we are like Channel 4, a creative company, and creative companies by definition have the ability to inspire people. And actually it was Caroline Casey, who I think has been with us today on this conference, who really inspired me on the journey. I think from a business context, seeing how she overcame. I wouldn't even say she overcame her disability. She sort of blew through it in a way. And the role I took before this as CEO Wonderman, I asked Caroline to come and speak to our first leadership conference, because I thought her journey was so inspirational to show people what they can achieve. So I think there's really three roles at WPP that we can play in making the world a more inclusive place. I think the first is about representation, the people that work for us. I mean, I think Christina Mallon is talking to us later today or tomorrow, and Christina runs our inclusive design practice. A really inspirational figure, again, someone who kind of carries on as though nothing could stop her. I'd say the second thing is through our work and the work we do with clients and clients like Unilever and Microsoft, and making sure that our work is sort of inclusive by design. We might touch on that, but I think that's a really important concept. And we have programs like Change the Brief at Mindshare, where when we get a brief from a client, maybe for a business problem or a marketing problem, we change it to answer not just the question we originally asked, but a different question. Can we achieve something else through this work that will make it better? And then I think that for us, it's really about the impact of our work. As you mentioned, we are in some way, creatively or through our media businesses, responsible for 1 in 5, 1 in 6 of the world's commercial messages. And that obviously has a big impact on people, on what they think and what they believe. Do people see people like themselves represented in commercial messages or not? Do the people we have working behind the camera or on screen represent society? And so I think we can really change attitudes to many of the issues in society, but we can really change attitudes towards disability as well. And so I think that's something that we're very keen to tackle. I mean, going back to brand we worked on with Unilever, Dove. I mean, I think Dove has really changed attitudes to what female beauty means, and I'd say in a very positive way for society. So I think we're trying to use our influence in a much more positive fashion.
Brilliant stuff. Really fantastic to hear. It's almost like I want to start asking more questions, but I can't because we've got to be conscious of time. So we'll move on and talk about culture. And if you're okay with this, I'd quite like to park the disability kind of angle just for a minute and think more broadly about the importance of culture and leadership and mission in the broad business sense. So Lena, do you want to take this one first?
Yes. It's one I talk about a lot, Corey. I really think culture is the magic ingredient that makes strategy into a reality. And culture eats strategy for breakfast. I mean, we know that for a fact. If you don't focus on the cultural elements that need to change, you can't make change happen. It's never technology and process that comes in the way of change. It's our behaviors, it's our mindset, it's our beliefs, it's our assumptions. And that's all the soft stuff that we have to get right in order to shift any action. So one of the things in Unilever that we do a lot on is focusing on our culture. And culture shifted by leadership behaviors. 70% of the impact on culture is how leaders behave, what kind of examples they talk about, what kind of behaviors they role model. And a 30% impact is because of the reinforcing systems and mechanisms you put in place, the reward systems, the incentive programs, and so on and so forth. So what we are trying to do is really help leaders understand a new kind of leadership. So our standards of leadership, again, is very simple. It's the inner game of leadership and the outer game of leadership. And the inner game is all about a sense of purpose and service. It's about learning agility. It's about personal mastery. So I think we're the only company of our scale and size that's putting 150,000 people through purpose workshops. What is your purpose and mission in life? How does your individual purpose and mission count for in Unilever? What difference can you make in Unilever with your individual purpose, passion, and mission? So we're really dialing up the inner game. And what that is doing is when we dial up the inner game for leaders, the sense of humanity increases in the company. Things like, what are we doing for our people? How inclusive are we? Are we making it easier for everybody to bring their best version to work? Becomes legitimate conversations every single day. So I do think culture begins with a focus on leadership behaviors, and getting leaders to tap into their inner humanity. Because the inner humanity is all good. Everyone wants to do good in the world. Everyone has a force for good in themselves. And that's why we believe at Unilever so strongly that you have to do well by doing good. It's not just doing well and doing good sit in two different buckets of the organization. We think it comes together. You do good, and by doing good for lots of people, the 2 billion consumers that we touch, we do well as a company. So in specifically with disability, some of the things we're doing for culture is launching the Enable Network, which is people with disability and their allies coming together to share experiences of being at Unilever. We have been inspired by Microsoft and done our first global disability survey to have a baseline of how many of our people are ready to disclose. And 75% of our people have disclosed whether they have a disability or not. And we're doing a lot of campaigning around the International Day of People for People with Disabilities in December. We have a whole week-long celebration, telling stories, making our purpose alive, bringing inspiring people, breaking stereotypes that we want to do in advertising, but breaking stereotypes and norms inside the company. So that's in short, Corey. I really believe culture is at the heart of making the change. If you need the numbers and the representation, but to retain people, you need to change the culture of the company to make it truly inclusive.
Yeah, totally agree. I absolutely agree. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of talking too much about what we've done at Channel 4, but absolutely echo so much of what you've been talking about just there through what we've seen in our own organisation as well. Cindy, what about you? Culture, mission, anything you'd like to add?
Well, so many of the things that Lena talked about resonate strongly with me. Microsoft is also a very mission-led company, and our mission is to use technology to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. And that means people of all abilities. And this is something we talk a lot about at Microsoft. And I definitely think, there's a renewed sense of urgency given the events of 2020 for companies to really reflect deeply on their responsibilities in this area. In the last few years under Satya Nadella's leadership, our company's really gone through a very profound cultural transformation. And there's been a fresh focus on the lived experience of our employees every day. And we talk at Microsoft about operationalizing D&I, because it really is about micro behaviors and putting a diversity and inclusion lens on every aspect of the employee experience, from recruitment to onboarding to learning, promotion, workplace design. We really try to hold ourselves accountable for inclusive behavior every day. And then beyond the employee experience, we put a D&I lens on how we market ourselves, the inclusive stories we tell, how we engage with our customers and partners to help them on their accessibility journey, even the products and services that we create. We're really passionate about inclusive design and creating products that unlock the full potential of people at work, at school, and in their daily lives. And we know when we do that well, it leads to greater innovation for everyone. But all of our passion on this topic really starts with a strong sense of mission and purpose and tone from the top of our company.
Brilliant, great stuff. Mark, turn to you. Anything you can add here?
I think actually when I started as chief executive, I spent quite a lot of time with Unilever. I remember going to a fantastic dinner. I'm sure I know Lena was at, where they talked about the sustainable living plan, and I really admired the simplicity of the purpose at Unilever. And so, we set out a new purpose at WPP. The purpose of the company has to be beyond profit if you truly want to be motivating, to the people that work for us. We set out a purpose to use the power of creativity to build a better future, for people, planet, clients, and communities, the people that really look at our work. And I think, as Cindy said, it comes down to a few things. It comes down to leadership. Do I, as chief executive, do I personally, take responsibility for making this type of company, quite frankly, the type of company that I would want to work in, as well as the type of company that I'd want our people to work in. I think that's the first thing. Secondly, then it falls on the leaders around me, and as a team, do we sign up to the next set of commitments? And then we're driving that down to the type of behaviors that we will reward. We're looking at incentive design to make sure that we reward people that build the type of company that we want to build. And then we're going further, into setting targets of representation to make sure that we are doing a good job through the way we hire and promote and recruit people inside the company to represent society. And I think that it makes a WPP that, quite frankly, does better work for our clients. This stuff can feel quite sort of touchy-feely, if you like, but I think it's no less important because it is. Because I think that if our people truly represent society and truly they can be their own, bring their own selves to work, they will do better work. We will get better creative ideas if we listen to people and respect their opinions. So I think that it really flows through, and it really flows through into the types of clients that we work with. I mean, and there is a hard business element to this, which is, our clients are wrestling with the same issues we're talking about, and they want to work with partners like WPP who recognize the importance of these issues and are committed to taking action. So this has a hard business angle to it. And I think that it's important to state that, because I think if it has a hard business angle, and if we're more successful, the more we lean into it, it means we'll do more. And that, I think, is important.
Yeah, totally echo loads of that. And great to hear from all of you, the same kind of sentiments coming through, that, culture is just one of those absolute cornerstones. You get that right and you're onto that winning path. So great to hear. Now let's talk a bit about process, because commitment is all well and good, but process kind of sits behind a lot of success. And I know sometimes we don't necessarily think of process as sounding the most sexy, but again, another kind of key cornerstone, I think. I'd say my own kind of personal experience, I've come to realise how important it is to be able to speak up sometimes at work. Certainly at Channel 4, in recent years, we've developed a number of employee resource groups, and our staff networks are really successful and doing great work, and we're kind of there to support the business and to challenge the business. And so as Mark mentioned at the beginning, I'm co-chair of Full Purple, which is Channel 4's disability staff network, and I really like to think of us as a kind of critical friends to the business. So I guess that's one process, the employee voice, that I see working really well at Channel 4. I'm hoping that you'll all be happy to come to the table now with some thoughts on that general topic of process. Cindy, shall I start with you?
Sure, absolutely. No, it's such a great question, Corey, because I think all the energy and passion in the world only leads to impact when you put it into action. And that's why I like to talk about how we operationalize this. And one of the things, as you mentioned, one of the things that we're finding is the best way for us to listen and learn is through our employee resource groups. And they keep us honest and they advise us on how we can do better. And that's a really important listening system for us. We also took action to evolve our approach to events. And actually, today, accessibility is such a central focus for every event that we produce. And virtual events like this one give us the opportunity to use the full suite of digital accessibility features like live captioning, subtitling, sign language interpretation on screen, audio description, and so much more. Another way we take action at Microsoft is by offering accessibility training to our employees. We have a badging program that teaches our employees best practices on how to present inclusively, how to host events. And it's not even mandatory, this is voluntary training, and yet hundreds and hundreds of our employees earned their accessibility badges, which I think is a great illustration of the passion that exists across our business. But finally, the big area for me, which I'm super excited about, is just how we make accessibility a business imperative. As Mark said, there is a business rationale here, which is, here in the UK, people with disabilities are the fastest growing minority group, and the value of that purple pound, that spending power, is estimated to be 250 billion pounds a year to the British economy. So many of our customers care deeply about this subject. And if we can encourage and empower them to take real and tangible action, we can really deliver digital inclusion at scale. And I think, Unilever and WPP are two excellent examples of how we're helping our customers achieve their targets in this area.
Awesome. Lena?
Great examples from Cindy. And like I said, we take a lot of inspiration from our partners and doing things differently. We have the Global Diversity Board, which is led by our CEO, Alan Job. So we want to signal that this is of the greatest importance to the business. And we have created what's an accessibility framework, which is everything from recruitment to retirement for our people, and every moment that matters in between. And we've challenged ourselves saying at each of those moments, how can we make sure we're truly creating accessibility and equity for all our people? And it is indeed our network, which is Enable, which is our network of people with disabilities and their allies, who help us design that. And there's some great examples of how things I hadn't thought of before are brought to light. So for example, one of the things we had a discussion with all of them about was how COVID has impacted people with disabilities. And while there's some mixed responses, for some it's been tougher to be through the loneliness and isolation that some of COVID has meant. But for a large number of them, our network felt that COVID has actually leveled the playing field for them, because they feel like everyone has the same accessibility, everyone's on a video call, there's no differences, you can't tell. So we've used some of that as we've designed our easement processes to get people back to work. We've consciously put a huge perspective for our disabled employees to make it even better for them when they come back to a workplace that's sort of hybrid in the post-COVID world. So it's really like Cindy said, listening to our people, lived experiences, the best example, starting from the top so that senior people are listening to what it means to work in Unilever effortlessly, what it takes for everyone to feel included, and building the accessible communication and assistive technology. So more and more self-serve catalog for accessible tools and software, more and more global guidelines for what inclusive communication looks like. You're absolutely right. We have to build this into our processes to make it sustainable, way beyond, not just for now, but forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, you might have a sense that Cindy and Lena have covered this amply already, but is there anything you would like to add on the subject of process?
No, I don't think so. I think all I'd add is that when we work with clients on these topics, we touch many more people inside the organisation, and I think that really helps us to spread the word and to evangelise. But we can maybe talk a bit about that later.
Yeah, sure. The one thing that occurs to me in all of this is, this is all brilliant and energising and wonderful, but we all know that in the whole realm of everything, there are so many competing demands on time and resources. So maybe I haven't got time to go to each of you in turn. If one of you would like to take the question on, how do we keep this real and relevant and make sure that the disability inclusion doesn't sort of slip off the board agenda or the agenda generally? Lena, do you want to take it?
Sure. Like all things, priority means it has to be in the business strategy. That's why I said it's so important for us. It's integrated into Compass. It's got to have leadership attention and priority. So it has to start from the CEO and the top table. You can't delegate it. And it has to have elements of building up much more a bottom-up movement. Yeah, one of the things is the business case and the moral case have to both integrate. And we have brands doing some great work. I mean, Mark spoke about Dove. Dove is the brand that we're doing a lot of inclusive work on. And one of the things they're doing together with our partners is creating a Dove Deo bottle for the UK that is easier for people with visual impairment, hearing impairment, cognitive disability to be able to work with and engage and have access to. And Dove is one of our most successful brands. It grows every year. It appeals to more and more consumers every year. So in many ways, we have to build the moral case and the business case together to be able to ensure this gets continued attention from the top table and from the business.
Totally agree. It's great to hear you say that. And yeah, absolutely. I can't add to that. Should we talk about product? Everyone's in the game one way or another. We'll start off, I think, by talking about the actual buying process, which obviously, Mark, is your realm. You represent some of the world's greatest brands, and you create so much collateral that really does need to be accessible. So give us some of your thoughts and experiences, and how we can help brands to reach people with disabilities in a much more kind of routine way, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this notion of inclusive design, and I think the way to think about it is that the biggest design fail to me is a disabled entrance to a building, right? Because that basically says you built the building the wrong way in the first place, right? There should be an entrance to the building that everybody can use. Now, we can't go back to the 19th century and recreate the world, but we can do that today. And so we're working with Microsoft on Unilever on an inclusive design lab to think through in everything that they do, how do we make products that everybody can use? And I think that should just be the way in which we go about business. But we can go further, and there's some work that we've done with Tommy Hilfiger that Christina played a big role in doing, in designing a line of adapted clothing for people with disabilities, clothing that's easy to take on and put off. You can do it up with one hand, not two hands, and it came about a little bit because Tommy Hilfiger himself personally was touched in his family by disability, and an idea really to create a line of clothing. Now, what's interesting is that it's a for-profit business and it's growing and it's successful. I think secondly, in the marketing of it, the whole end-to-end marketing was done from designing the clothes to shooting the television commercial to the people that featured in the clothing were people with disability. So it was sort of built into the Tommy Hilfiger adaptive line. So I think that we need to do both things, but I think in principle, I would say the principles of inclusive design, I think, are the most important ones, because if we apply them consistently, then we really will, sort of make the world a much more inclusive place.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think as we fix that better, equally, we start to help disability itself just not be seen as such a problem. Because I think part of the really bad rep that disability has is because it's seen so frequently as a problem, because, you've got to fix things after the event. And actually, if we can get into that mindset, this idea of inclusive design, and everybody's encouraged to think about accessibility right from the get-go, it suddenly doesn't become a problem later in the day, and quite often you get a better end product as a result. So great stuff. Thanks, Mark. Lena, should we talk about product next? You've talked about Dove already. How much further do you think we've got to go to really get the best product experience?
It's a long way. I must say with all humility that it's a long way still. Yeah. And it's fantastic that we are working with Mark and team and using the Inclusive Design Laboratory to stretch our thinking on how we can make our products and brands much more accessible. But it is still a long way up. It's still one or two examples when we have 400 brands that touch billions of consumers everywhere. One of the examples I was inspired by, because we have such scale and we can use the scale for good in such powerful ways. For example, in Indonesia, we have an app called Jerak, because 1 out of 10 Indonesians are disabled. We know that the roads and infrastructure is not great to get to work or get to anywhere. And this app allows people with disability to understand where there is access to disability-friendly facilities. It maps the mapping guides, gives them more guidance on the routes, and they can speak with other people who are like them to find places that are easier to navigate to get to work or wherever else they want to. And I was absolutely blown to see that 87 million people use this app, and it's like the #1 trending app in travel at a local country level. So it just shows that if we are thoughtful about the products we make, the brand experiences we have, we could make such a difference in the world. It would make sense for the consumers. It allows our brands to get the mind and heart space that we want our brands to have. And it makes business sense, it makes common sense, it makes moral sense, all of it coming together. So long way to go, but some examples to give us hope.
Yes, and hope we'll cling on to it and and make it happen. Awesome stuff. Thank you. Cindy, the digital tech space, I mean, the whole world is becoming increasingly reliant on the tech. So, you know, everything needs to be inclusive. So what can Microsoft do to kind of really raise the bar now in that accessibility space?
Yeah, I think Mark said it beautifully. I mean, inclusive design thinking is deeply embedded within our processes. And we don't build technology for disabled people. We build technology that works for everyone. You know, every website, every application, our productivity software, our operating system, our gaming experiences are built with everyone in mind. And, you know, we've made some amazing progress, but we still have a very long way to go. I know we're short on time, so I did just want to pick up on Lena's point about COVID-19, because I think it's, you know, we've just done some research in the US, and it's clear to us that people with disabilities in some ways are being disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. And in the US, 1 in 5 employees with disabilities have lost their jobs since the beginning of the pandemic, compared to 1 in 7 without disabilities. Mm-hmm. So I do think it's worth recognizing that these are very challenging times for people with disabilities. We have a disability answer desk, and we've seen call volumes increase 200% since the pandemic began. So I think we're making great progress in this space, but there's just so much more work to do.
Agree entirely. I didn't actually know that stat on disability job losses as well, which is really quite sobering, isn't it? But okay, let's talk a bit about innovation. I'm conscious of time too. We've touched on innovation already, so we'll be brief with this. But clearly, with all businesses growing and moving forward, innovation is kind of business critical. I'm wondering whether there's time to go to all three of you on this. So if anyone who wants to leap in with the answer that they feel is most prevalent. But the question really is, why, when we're thinking about innovation, is disability important to consider?
Who wants to go?
No, I think, look, I just say there are many examples where people with tackling issues that people with disability can lead to innovation. I'm told this, that the typewriter was invented for a countess who was losing her sight. Yeah. There are many things that in tackling one problem, you come up with an answer. So I think that we should continue to persist in trying to make the world a more inclusive place. And I'm sure that we all struggle with finding the shower bottle and opening a can and many things, right? Increasingly as we get older. So I think that this will generally be a better thing for all of us.
Awesome.
Sorry, the big complex problems of our time need different minds, and therefore some of the psychological safety we need for people with diverse ideas, diverse life experiences, diverse toolkits is so important to be able to find a breakthrough answer to some of these big complex problems that can't be solved by one brain alone.
Yeah, absolutely agree. It's the diversity of perspective is so massively important. Thank you guys for that. As we kind of come to the end of this, it'd be great just to hear what you kind of all hope for the future, for just the next couple of years, maybe in this accessibility space. Cindy, do you want to take it first?
Yeah, I'm very optimistic, Corey. I mean, I'm blessed with a team of very dedicated colleagues and a CEO who keeps accessibility at the top of our list of priorities as a company. And what I'm really excited about is the impact that we can have with our customers. And my goal is to introduce accessibility into every customer conversation. We have a program called Just One More Thing, inspired by our Chief Accessibility Officer. And we're finding that if you introduce accessibility into the customer conversation, it's almost universally received with great interest. And we're trying to scale this program right across the region so that we can really create a culture where everyone feels valued and welcomed.
Yeah.
Awesome. Lena?
I hope, Corey, when we speak 2 years from now or 3 years from now, you can tell me that Unilever is the beacon for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the world. I really, really hope so. And I really hope we don't have to 3 years later try to convince people on why it's important. There's no more need for business case, moral case. People just get it and do it because they understand it.
Yeah, love it. I totally agree. Mark, anything you can add?
I think, as both Unilever and Microsoft are clients, when our clients speak like that, you can see how, why taking this, more seriously and putting disability really at the heart of the agenda for WPP will make us, both a better company, but also a more successful company. And I think when those two things align, when the moral imperative and the business imperative align, then truly we're in the right place. So we have more work to do, as everyone recognises, and we're not there yet. But I think that it's something that I'm committed to, and our leadership is committed to, and I think will help make WPP a better, a more successful company in the future.
Brilliant. It's great to hear, and totally agree. Having this kind of top level C-suite, they call it, engagement is just so brilliant and so energizing. And I think now we're at that point where we need more of it. We need so much more of it. And I'd say to anybody who's watching this now, use this as the ammunition to go and win the case in your own organizations. We need buy-in at all levels of the organization, but that starts right at the top and it ripples down, but it does start right at the top with leaders like these amazing guys here. Mark, Lena, Cindy, thank you so much for your time, for your insights, and I've really enjoyed today's session, and I really hope you have too.
Thanks.
Corey.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corey.
Cindy, Corey. Bye.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you so much to all of you, Mark, Cindy, Lena, and particularly Corey, for that session. What an amazing range of different inputs you've offered there, and obviously helped us feel inspired as well that the leaders we're talking about are listening to us, because these are our stories as well in the accessibility community about what we're trying to achieve, and also understanding what your goals are so that we can align with the things that you're trying to do. So that was fantastic. A couple of things I want to pick up on, little signposts. Christina's session is on Thursday. Mark mentioned the work that she did with Tommy Hilfiger, which was a fantastic campaign, fantastic successful campaign. She's going to be talking on Thursday about that, Thursday morning. And also some of the stats that Cindy alluded to in the US. There's a session tomorrow morning from Scope talking about the impact of COVID on the lives of disabled people, and some of the data that they've pulled together around working life, but also life at home and other aspects of their life. And I think it's easy to be very positive and hearing the leaders speak in that way, but of course the way that disabled people's lives have been affected by COVID has been disproportionate. The data shows that. And so we want to start tomorrow's session by looking at the big picture of the lives of disabled people and the impact that COVID is having, and also then look at the ways that technology can match up to their needs. But what an amazing session. Just hearing business leaders give up their time. Firstly, that's 45 minutes of their time they've put into our day to talk about accessibility and disability. That wasn't happening 5 years ago when we started TechShare Pro. It is happening now. It is happening because of Caroline and her work on the Valuable 500, but it's also happening because of the bubbling up of all the accessibility community and evangelists, and they're putting their names out there and saying, let's try and get this done. But of course, getting the ear of the C-suite is our real goal. And so I hope that what we've created there is an opportunity for a conversation that you can have in your organization and say, look, this is what these people are getting from this. Lovely little mix there between Unilever, Microsoft and WPP, and Mark at the end saying, you're our clients, so we're going to listen to what your priorities are. All of that is an amazing opportunity for us all to go out there and make the change happen at that top level. So a huge thank you to the panel for their time. Again, thank you so much, Corey, for running that session for us, and thank you all for joining us today. So next things that can happen, we've got some workshops running at 1 o'clock, and they're in the program. If you find the program, if you click on the VCM link at the top left-hand corner of the panel, another top tip, use your browser rather than the Teams app if you can. It seems to be more adaptable when you're joining events. There may be some exceptions to that. I think I've just read that an iPad may be struggling on the browser. It's not clear whether it works exactly the same way in every browser. So that's a general point. I know some people have had some issues using clicking through. And then the program button inside the VCM link will take you to a list of all the sessions this afternoon. There's a lot of stuff going on in the different streams. The schedule will show you the chunk. Look inside the program to find out what's inside the actual chunks. So let us know on the chat if you're having any questions or issues around the technology. We're going to build a little top tips link. We'll send around during the end of the day, towards the end of the day. We're all new to working in this way, and we've made this as accessible as we can, but we know there's probably things that we can either make more accessible or at least share top tips that you've found about workarounds and other things. So let us know those things and we'll share those out before tomorrow's sessions start. Sessions at 1 o'clock are in the program. What we're going to do now is play some videos that have been sent over by Microsoft. Lots of different top tips about using the accessibility features in Office. For those of you that are Office users, you'll know that all sorts of features in there now in terms of accessibility functionality. And a lot of what we're trying to do with Microsoft generally is to raise awareness of those features, get people clicking on the accessibility checker, for example, in their email or their PowerPoint or their Word documents. So that'll play now. You can have a wander around the exhibition hall. You can check in on the schedule or the program to see what's coming up. There are workshops over lunchtime. There is a 250-person ceiling on that, so on each of those because of the way that we're running them. So if you do want to get into one, then it's worth getting into the one you want as soon as you can. If you miss it, they are being recorded and they'll be played out afterwards. They're coming through, the recordings are coming through during the day. They have to be processed and then put back into the platform. So keep your eye open for that if you do miss it. But thank you so much for joining us, and what an amazing way to start the conference. Hearing from those business leaders, really inspiring to know that that's where they're coming from chimes so much with what we're doing. So I hope that's given you some inspiration and something to take back to your leaders to talk about what you can do in your organization. So thanks for all that, and we'll see you soon.
Hello everyone, my name is Cassandra Marrero, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my favorite experience in Microsoft Teams. I spend most of my days in meetings, and to make the most of those meetings, I like to be able to achieve 3 things. The first thing, I like to keep the discussion focused. Second thing, I like to be able to have my say without interrupting others. And the last thing, I like to be able to go back to the discussion so that I can then check on my call to actions. So how do I do that? Super simple. Let me show you. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the background effect so that I can actually block the visual noise. So that's as simple as that. The next thing that I'm going to do is then hit on record so that I can actually watch it later. And lastly, let us not forget that I can raise my hand at any point and have my voice heard. And that's why I love Microsoft Teams meetings.
Hi everyone, I'm Dan, and I just want to share with you a few new features we've got in Word to help with spell checking and actually getting things done quickly. So the first one is the dictate feature that we have here in the ribbon. I'm able to talk in a language of my choice, typically English, and it will translate automatically for me on the screen, which is really handy. We also have a great app called Editor, which is the evolution of our spell checker app. And in here you can see it's giving me coaching around spelling and grammar in the languages that I've got set up in my document. So it's really handy to get some insight into what those words actually mean, as well as being able to get the word to be read out loud to me. So I hope that helps. Thanks for listening.
Hi, my name's Elliot, and I'm going to show you today how to enable the accessibility prompt across Outlook. To do this, click on the cog icon in the top right corner to open up the settings pane, and then you want to go to the bottom and click on View All Outlook Settings. From here, select General and then Accessibility, And from beneath it, you'll see an option with a tick box that says ask senders to send content that's accessible. This will enable a prompt in the Outlook web app as well as your desktop app to make sure that everyone who sends you mails and messages in the future will be sending accessible and inclusive messages because they would have checked them with the accessibility checker. Go enable this today. It's a fantastic feature to make your organization more inclusive.
Hi, my name is Emma Ledger, and today I'm going to be talking about quiet hours in Microsoft Teams. I'm sure I'm not alone with the recent change to remote working in finding it challenging to create boundaries between work and home life. To use quiet hours, we navigate to the settings pane, go to notifications and go to quiet hours. I can then select to switch on or off my quiet hours from particular periods of time up to particular days of the week. This is going to help me to support mindfulness and mental health and minimize distractions out of hours.
Hi, my name is Fernando and I want to show you a simple trick in Outlook to automatically give you and everyone else at work a bit of a breather between calls and hopefully help with your mental well-being. There's a growing number of us right now who are adapting to remote working, and our calendars tend to easily get filled up with back-to-back meetings, so it's very important that we remember to take breaks and clear our heads before jumping straight into the next call. Go to your Outlook calendar options, find the End Appointments and Meetings Early menu and mark the checkbox. You can then use the drop-downs to select the number of minutes that you want to take out of meetings. And after that, whenever you schedule a meeting, those minutes will be automatically discounted. So go on, use it, you'll thank yourself and so will everyone else.
Hi, I'm Hector Minto from the Corporate Responsibility team here at Microsoft. I'm going to show you Reading on Magnify, a brand new feature available in Windows 10. Whenever you're magnified, Windows Plus, in the Windows environment, you can click on any text and choose Reading. So you'll see here, we have a wordy document. Control, Alt, and click on the text.
In consideration of the matters described above and of the mutual benefits and obligation.
Invokes reading absolutely anywhere within the Windows environment, including places like the Notes tab in PowerPoint. So this is not specific to documents. This will work absolutely anywhere.
Use your PC without a display.
This really powers up the magnifier feature in Windows, adding read out loud anywhere within the environment. Thanks so much.
My name is Joanna and I'm going to show you the coolest feature in PowerPoint. Design Ideas uses AI to suggest a template for your slide, which many people might think that it's all about making those slides look nice, but it was actually originally built as an accessibility feature for those people who had any movement impairment. You can go and start using the feature today by opening your PowerPoint and select the Design Ideas button. This will come up with certain suggestions for my slide, and I will be able to pick the one that I think that is most appropriate. It also works with text in a similar way that works with pictures, suggesting me templates for my slide. And voila, it's that easy to help you make your slides look nice, clean, by using Design Ideas in PowerPoint.